I'm excited about this one. In this episode, you will learn practical financial steps on how to recover and accelerate generational wealth. You will learn how to remove heavy debt, how to develop long term wealth, how to make legacy investments, and so much more. So be sure to stay to the end for some priceless and life changing value. Man Thoughts, real truth, real talk, real issue, masculine content, no apologies. And if you have stayed with us through this series from the beginning, if you sat through the uncomfortable truth of part 1, if you counted the receipts in part 2, and if you walked through all 5 steps of the comeback in part 3, then lastly, if you learn that you are not starting over, but you're starting again in part 4, then you already know something that the man who stumbled onto this episode does not know. You know what the mud lie cost. You know what the truth requires. And you know what it means to live through the consequences of believing a lie. Drop a comment. Did you believe the mud lie? What did it cost you? And what did you do when you woke up? Let's have a real conversation. This is Man Thoughts. Like, comment, and subscribe right now. But here's the question this final episode has been built to answer. It is the one question that every man in this series has been circling without fully landing on it. That question is, what happens after the comeback? Not when the urgency is fresh and the motivation is high, not when the pain of the lost decade is still close enough to keep you disciplined, but what happens after that moment? What happens when the foundation has been built, when the skills have been sharpened, when the network is activated and the income is multiplying? What happens when the man who believed the mud lie has fully become the man that truth has produced? I'll tell you what happens. Although the personal transformation is very real and it is remarkable, the man that reclaimed his destiny accelerates. Not for himself alone, but for every person that comes after his decision. He accelerates for every child who will inherit the standard that he sets, for every younger brother or mentee who will follow the path that he cleared, for every member of a community that will be more steady, stronger, and more economically resilient because one man refused to let a generational lie be the final word in his bloodline. Psychologist Benjamin Hardy spent years researching what separates the men who truly transform from the men who merely make minor improvements. And his conclusion is direct and documented. His conclusion is that identity is not something you discover. It is something you decide. And the man who decides not once a moment of inspiration, but daily, through behavior, through discipline, through the relentless practice of becoming. He does not just change his own life, he changes the trajectory of everyone his life touches. That is not motivation. That is mathematics. Your comeback does not end with you. It begins with you. And it compounds through every generation that follows you. Generational foundations are built by sacrifice, but they are sustained by honor. Stay locked, everybody. This is Generation Acceleration. Man Thoughts, real truth, real talk, real issue, masculine content, no apologies. In segment 1, we're going to discuss debt removal, establishing the foundation before you build the fortress. Here's what nobody tells the man who is in the mud, and what every man who has ever accelerated out of it had to learn, either by discipline or by disaster. You cannot build wealth on top of debt. You can only delay Debt is not just a financial liability, it is an identity, an anchor that holds the old version of you in place. Every minimum payment that you make is a monthly vote for the man that you used to be. So before we talk about investment strategy, before we discuss real estate acquisitions or passive income, we must deal with this one issue, the debt issue. And we're going to deal with it completely, strategically, and permanently. Let's talk about the two approaches to debt elimination. Number one, the avalanche. This is called the mathematician's method. This method suggests that you list every debt from the highest interest rate to the lowest, regardless of the balance, and then direct every available dollar above minimum payment and place it towards the highest debt first. When that debt falls and it is eliminated, redirect that full payment amount to the next highest interest debt. This method eliminates the most expensive debts first, and it saves the most money over time. These high interest rate debts are generally credit cards, which are typically 18 to 29%. These must always go first. Next, we want to attack the personal loans and medical debt. These you can sometimes negotiate settlements with lump sum payoffs when it's possible. If you get an extra bonus or a raise or a family inheritance, you can use those lump sum amounts of money to pay off these debts at sometimes 40, 60, and 80% off on settlements. Next, you want to attack student loans. On these, you can pursue income-driven repayment or forgiveness programs while you're attacking higher interest debts like credit cards. Next, we want to attack your auto loans. Accelerate this payoff as quickly as possible. And going forward, never finance depreciating assets longer than 36 months. The next approach of debt removal is called the snowball approach. This is the positive psychology method. If motivation is the deficit, not the math, then the snowball method provides the psychological wins that keep the man in motion, moving forward and removing debt. This approach recommends that you list debt's smallest balance to largest. Then eliminate the smallest first. Feel that momentum, then use that momentum to accelerate in your debt removal. Both of these methods work. However, it's the one that you actually execute that wins. Now let's discuss the non-negotiable rules of debt recovery. Make an attempt to negotiate every balance. Credit card companies will often settle for 40 to 60 cents on the dollar on a regular basis. Call them, ask them, negotiate. The worst they could answer is no. And that no won't cost you anything. So give it a shot. Number 2 rule in debt recovery: never close old accounts after you pay off the debt. Why? Because the length of credit history is 15% of your FICO score. Number 3 rule: freeze your credit during the rebuild. Spending more money won't help you. Also, identity theft during a financial comeback can be catastrophic. Rule number 4: the moment a debt is eliminated, redirect 100% of that payment into the next phase of your debt removal. That is not disposable income. That is not money to be spent on a luxury lifestyle. That money is to go 100% towards debt removal. Remember, the borrower is servant to the lender, and you cannot serve your family with full hands if debt is holding your wrist. Segment 2: building the wealth acceleration system. Once the debt is cleared, or clearly on a disciplined elimination schedule, the man on the comeback begins building the wealth design. Number 1 investment, not one strategy, but a layered, diversified compounding system that generates wealth while he sleeps, while he works, and while he lives. He develops both active and passive income streams. This is not gambling. This is not get rich quick. This is the deliberate, patient, methodical construction of a generational wealth engine, built one brick at a time, starting with the foundation. And now let's talk about the cornerstone investment, the cornerstone asset, real estate investing. Strategy A, buy and hold real estate, is the most time tested wealth vehicle in American economic history. The principle is simple, but the discipline is not. Here's how it works: you acquire a residential or commercial property, a single family home, a duplex, a small multifamily with 2 to 4 units. You acquire at or below market value, place a qualified tenant in the unit, and you collect monthly cash flow while the asset is appreciating and tenants continue to pay down your mortgage. The year one target is not a portfolio, but one property. Here's your house hack, if necessary, meaning you live in one unit of a duplex and you let the next door tenants pay for the entire mortgage while you build equity year after year. Here's the buy and hold formula and what the numbers must say. The 1% rule, which means the monthly rent should equal at least 1% of the mortgage. In example, if you have a $150,000 home that you're renting, the monthly rental should be at least $1,500. Depending on market conditions, the rental income should exceed the mortgage payment by at least 25%. This is called debt service coverage ratio, or DSCR. Finding below market properties are critically beneficial in achieving these goals. There are several different ways you can identify these below market value properties. You can find them through wholesalers. You can find them yourself by personally driving through neighborhoods and doing what we call driving for dollars. You can identify distressed properties before they hit the MLS. You can also attend foreclosure auctions at the county courthouse steps, and also through auctions that are done online platforms such as auction.com or Hubzu. Send out direct mail campaigns to absentee owners in targeted zip codes using a platform called PropStream. You can search the MLS for properties that have been listed over 90 days on the market. These are generally motivated sellers that are willing to negotiate. You can locate the tax delinquent list, which is available through your county tax assessor's office. And now let's talk about strategy B in real estate investing, which is the buy, renovate, and flip investment. This is the active wealth builders investment, and it's not passive, it is active, but it brings great reward. Flipping is not a passive income. It is an active income with higher risk, but higher reward. These project investments can become the capital generators that fund the long-term buy and hold portfolio. The man who builds both arms of these strategies will simultaneously accelerate the fastest. Let's talk about the flip formula, which is known as the 70% rule. In other words, never pay more than 70% of after repair value minus the estimated renovation costs. The after repair value is known as the ARV. An example, let's say the ARV after repair value is $250,000. The renovation equals $40,000 maximum. Then your purchase price should equal $250,000 times the 0.70 minus the $40,000 that you spend in renovation, which would equal $135,000. Anything above paying that amount erodes your profit margin. Now let's talk about the 4 phases of a profitable flip. Number 1, acquisition. Source a unit that is below market value. Use hard money lenders or private money for speed. Typical hard money lenders are 8 to 12% interest. They usually charge you 1 to 3 points. And the terms of the loan is generally 6 to 12-month term. Next, let's talk about renovation. Kitchen and bathrooms generally drive 80% of the after repair value. But you never want to over-improve for the neighborhood. Stick to the scope and remember that time is money at hard money rates. Step number 3 in a flip is staging and listing. Professional staging generally returns $2 to $5 for every dollar that you spend in staging, which is well worth it. Price the finished unit at market value and do not chase the top of the market. Again, too many days on market kills your profit. Step 4 in a profitable flip is reinvestment. In other words, you want to use the profits from flipped houses to fund the next buy and hold. This is the cycle that builds the portfolio without requiring outside capital indefinitely. You can use a 1031 exchange to defer the capital gains when transitioning from flip properties into long-term buy and holds. This single tax strategy has built more generational real estate wealth than any other mechanism in the tax code. You now have the first half of the acceleration blueprint. You now know how to surgically eliminate the debt that has been anchoring the old version of you in place. You now know how to build the wealth plan, brick by brick, property by property, stream by stream, into a compounding system that generates while you sleep. This is the offensive game, and the man who masters it will look up in 3 to 5 years and he will barely recognize the financial ground that he is standing on. But I need to warn you, before you go execute, there is a graveyard full of men who built it and could not keep it. Men who stacked real estate and left no structure behind them. Men who generated income with no protection around it. Men who worked for decades to build a foundation and then, one unexpected moment, turned all they built into a legal battle that their families are still fighting. The offensive game builds wealth, but it's the defensive game that makes it generational. In part 2 of Generation Wealth Acceleration, we're going to cover the half of the blueprint that most men skip because it does not feel as exciting as buying your first rental property. But I can assure you, it is the most important thing you will hear in this entire series. Don't miss Generation Wealth Acceleration Part 2. It's going to be accelerating. Man Thoughts, real truth, real talk, real issue, masculine content, no apologies. Drop a comment. Did you believe the mud lie? What did it cost you? And what did you do when you woke up? Let's have a real conversation. This is Man Thoughts. Like, comment, and subscribe right now. For more masculine content from this channel, click right here.